Ibrahim Mogra. If I can start with you, Simon, good morning to you.
Good morning.
I presume you saw the programme last night?
Yeah, I don't live in the East Midlands, but I caught up with it with the wonders of BBC iPlayer this morning.
And what are your thoughts, I wonder?
Well, originally when the programme producers approached me, they asked whether or not they could cooperate with the party hierarchy in the East Midlands, and I put the question to them in the East Midlands, and they said no, because it'll be a normal, simplistic, emotive hatchet job where the white people are all the bad guys and the black people are the victims. And he was right.
He was right. So you think it was a biased programme, do you?
No, I don't think it's biased from that point of view, but it's very difficult, you see, when you're trying to kind of allege criminality and wrongdoing. You've got a guy there actually doing the reporting who's actually got a criminal record. If the BBC wanted to be straight about that, then perhaps they should have said that in the outset. But if it was going to be a programme that was honest, warts and all, then that's what they should have said. Well,
look, this is your chance to put the record straight once and for all, Simon. The question I have for you simply, is the BNP racist?
No, it's not. It would appear, and that programme is trying once again to instill in people this logic that racism is dependent on the race of the racist. Can black people be racist? I mean, that's a question that's never asked.
I'm sure it is a question that has been asked, and I'm sure the answer to that is everybody could potentially be racist, because we're all from one race, and that is the human race. We're all the same, aren't we?
No, we're not. Of course we're not. Otherwise we wouldn't have the term race in the first place, would we? Let's be honest about this. Now, you say that this question or not, or whether or not other people other than white people can be racist. You've got Leicester East MP Keith Faz, the chairman of the Black Socialist Society, very powerful organisation that sits on the National Labour Executive. Does anybody ever ask him why there aren't any white members?
Can black people be members of the BNP?
No, because our constitution at the moment says that only indigenous people, and it's very embarrassing for Liberals, obviously, but the indigenous people of this country are white.
But hang on a sec, Simon. I mean, take any one of my number of colleagues here that I've known for a good number of years. They're second, sometimes third, and even fourth generation black or Asian people. They are as British as I am.
Well, civically, that might be the case, but the embarrassing fact for Liberals is that ethnically they're not. These people cannot be ethnically British. It's the same with the Aboriginals. No one would dream of saying that there's no such thing as an Aboriginal, no such thing as an Indigenous Australian or an Indigenous Red Indian, but nobody extends that courtesy to Indigenous Britons like me.
So what is Britishness in a nutshell, Simon, in your view?
Well, again, you're asking me to define my own identity. I'd ask you once again, with the tone of this interview, would you, if I was a black guy or an Indian guy, a Pakistani guy, would you ask me to justify my own existence?
Well, it would depend on the circumstances. If it was a parallel issue, yes, of course I would. Why would I not?
Well, these questions are never asked. You see, the thing is, we're going down the same road here again, as the white guy's always the bad guy, and the black guys are always the victims.
I'm just asking. All I'm asking you is your determination of what is Britishness. What is wrong with that question?
Well, it depends. I mean, we look at our society. It's got three basic elements to it. There's indigenous Brits like me. I'm English, ethnically English.
How far back?
Well, you see, again, you're asking me to justify my own existence.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Well, nothing. But you don't extend that kind of questioning to you wouldn't question a Pakistani guy's right to his own identity, or a Jamaican guy. You'd just accept it. You wouldn't try and counter his argument and basically airbrush out his identity. You wouldn't dream of insulting him like that.
Well, I don't see it as an insult. You can ask me, Simon.
Three basic strands of society. Indigenous people like me, which may be embarrassing for the likes of you and the BBC, that people like me exist and want to exist. Then you have civically British people. Civically British people, Sikhs, Hindus, West Indians or whatever, who want to obey the rules, want to pay their taxes. They're just as civically British as me. They're entitled to full protection of the law. They're happy with that. Then you have a third element that aren't happy living here, that want to undermine everything that we've built up, want to change our rules and turn our society into a basket case, basically. That's the way we see it.
Stay there, Simon. I want to bring in Ibrahim Mulgrew if I can here. Ibrahim, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You've been listening to the conversation I've just had with Simon Darby from the BNP. You saw the programme last night?
Yes, I did.
And what were your thoughts?
Well, I was absolutely disgusted and extremely worried about the allegations that were being made. It seems that this racist party, the BNP, is out to play our diverse minority communities against one another in order to try and create a picture that there are elements within our society that are unwanted elements. The route that Simon began with this morning with the character assassination does not remove the fact that we saw a gollywog being burnt in that footage, which is extremely racist. We heard about how the Muslim community in particular was pinpointed to say that this is a group that is trying to undermine the Christian nature of our country. To put it on the record, we as a Muslim community in the United Kingdom have no problem whatsoever in our country being described as a Christian country. In fact, the Muslim Council of Britain is on record to have supported the position of the Church of England as being the established church of our country. We have no issues with that whatsoever. We have continually supported the presence of the bishops in the upper house. We have no problems with that. In fact, there are Christian groups that have made moves against such a situation in our country, and we have continually supported that.
Would it nevertheless not be fair to say, Ibrahim, that Muslims are on the rise in this country, if I can use that phraseology, whereas the Christian values and beliefs and the Christian church in general is on the demise? Is that not so?
If that is the case, then we need to ask the Muslim community how they are managing to make their followers faithful and obedient to their religion, and ask the Christians why it is the case, if it is true, that the practice of Christianity is on the decline. I don't think you can blame one faith community for the success of the other. I think each faith community needs to examine its own situation and see how best we can help one another. We, for example, we have the Christian Muslim Forum, where we have fantastic relations between Muslims and Christians. We've done things together, we've supported each other, and we will always stand beside people of minority communities and of other faith groups to say that we live in a wonderful country. And by the way, if I say to Simon, I am English, I'm a proud Englishman, I'm proud to be British, this is my home, this is my country, this is where I live, I raise my children, I go to work in this country has given me so much, and I want to give back more than what I have received. And if he asks how long, I'm not indigenous, as he puts it. I've been here for 25 years. My children and my wife are from the soil of this country, and long may my generations continue in this great country of ours. But the BNP is the only political party that is racist, that does not allow non-white people to join. The comparison with the black associations and the other associations that we have is not a comparison. Those are not political parties. And I'm sure if a white person showed an interest in joining such a group, they would be welcome.
Would you like to respond to that, Simon?
Well, yes, I think what we've got here, and it's very interesting listening to your guest there, he's actually glossing over the fact that, as you rightly pointed out, the Muslim population in this country is growing 10 times faster than any other population. That's what's happening here. And you can dress it up any way you want, but the raw truth of it, and I'll tell you the raw truth, I'm not in the Conservatives or the Lib Dems or the Labour Party, I'm in the BNP, and I can tell the raw truth. We're not dealing with integration, we're not dealing with migration, we're dealing with colonisation. Town after town in this country is having an increasingly aggressive Islamic community imposing itself on this country of ours, and it's changing it for the worse. I'll be quite honest with you. In London, where I used to work up until a few months ago, the indigenous population in London, inner city London, in schools is down to 17%, and that's a worry. We are being replaced, and one of the weapons that's being used to replace us is this psychological warfare that every time we stand up for our rights and our nation and our identity and our culture, we're immediately shouted down as being racist.
Well, I mean, Nick Griffin, your leader, he has, perhaps in a lot of people's views, quite rightly raised the issue of immigration, for instance, and his answer, and I've got the quote here before me, Simon, I'm sure you know it as well as I do, if not better. Frankly, they need to sink several of the boats. Anyone coming up with measures like that will support, but anything which is there as we need to do something about it, but in the end doing something about it means bringing them into Europe, we will oppose. But sinking boats of people that are coming to this country, perhaps often to do an awful lot of good, what sort of immigration policy is that?
Well, actually, that's another one of Nick's quotes that has been misinterpreted. He actually meant sinking the boats themselves, not with people on them. And imagine he would say such a thing like that. But there are a lot of people that do agree that we are being overrun by people from Africa and Asia and the Middle East. You only have to look at Leicester, for instance, which is due to go from a predominantly English city in 2012 to be a minority.
But where would we be without a lot of these people that have come to this country to enrich our culture and economy?
But you see, isn't that racism? The fact that you are saying that we need to be enriched.
But it's always been the way. It's always been the way, hasn't it, since time immemorial?
No, it hasn't.
Well, it has.
Genetic studies have proved that most of the people in this country who have a paternal grandparent in this country for 3 generations can trace their ancestry back for 10,000 years. So once again, it's more propaganda. The baseline of this propaganda and where it's leading is to deny us our right and our identity, and to then pretty much colonise our country and take away everything that we've got. That's what's happening here. I'm supposed to be the villain and the bad guy. And the nice Muslim chap you have on there, he's all very reasonable and he's all very calm and whatever. But what's actually happening, he's overseeing and facilitating the colonisation of this country, which will eventually turn us into an Islamic republic, and we'll be living under Sharia law, and he's doing it by stealth.
Now, I want to come back to one or two points that you've made there and highlight one or two text messages that are coming through in response to this. But, Ibrahim, just respond to those comments before we move on, please.
Yeah, I mean, Simon's suggestion that the Muslim population is going 10 times faster does not add up. If you look at the figures, it simply doesn't add up. He is worried about minority communities, particularly Muslims, taking over our inner cities and all that. He's given us a perfect example of Leicester, where the white population is going to be a minority. But Leicester is a fantastic example where the diverse communities of our great country are living together in peace, in harmony, enjoying each other's company, enriching each other's lives. And indeed, the contribution of the immigrant communities that are now settled in our country is phenomenal. And we will continue to contribute for the betterment of our society, the well-being of our communities. That is part and parcel of our duty as Muslims to the country that we live in. This is our home, and if that is a problem for Simon, then there is a vast majority of people in this country who have welcomed us, who have embraced us. Britain has always had a fantastic history of being a very welcoming nation, and that spirit must continue. We are a nation that welcomes people who are in need of a home, who need shelter, who need protection, and that is a heritage that we cannot afford to give away just because of a racist party feeling that they are being swamped, because that is not how your average British person on the street feels.
Ibrahim, thank you very much indeed for that. This is a text message that's come from Sue, Simon, so this is to you. Tony, the BNP won't allow Poles and Serbs and the like to join the British National Party. The second... Well, let me just finish. The second generation was born here, and many of the fathers fought for our country during the last war.
Yeah, we do have people of Polish extraction who are members of the party, members who are actually councillors.
You do?
So she's misinformed there.
OK. So what is British?
Well, indigenous European is what I say. Obviously, I can't go into too much detail. I'm not evading the question, because we do have a court case in which I am named, incidentally. Right. Going through the courts in London on Thursday, so I don't want to stray into the realms of subjudice, but I think I've answered that question. But Ibrahim's question or response there to mine, celebrating the disenfranchisement of the white community in Leicester, is obscene. He's actually deploring an excess of white people, which is the most perverse example of racism I can possibly imagine. You
got to respond to that, Ibrahim.
Yes, of course. It is no way how Simon puts it. I'm not celebrating the fact that the white community is in a minority. What I'm saying is, despite the fact that the non-white communities have grown in Leicester, we have had fantastic, peaceful and friendly relationships right across the board between all the different religions and all the different races. But let me ask Simon a question. He has suggested that the BNP is now welcoming Polish and other European people onto the party. What if you had a Balkan, white, European Muslim who would like to join your party? Would you welcome them to your party?
I think if you look at Islam and the way it is countering to everything that a Western democracy entails, then I think there is an incompatible level of hostility towards what we actually stand for. And I think in the actual constitution, I don't think any Muslim, for instance, would sign up to a constitution that says that we are committed to removing the concept of an Islamic threat to this country. I don't think it's a compatible thing. But I would put to you, for instance, my friend, how would you feel if somebody came up with a policy of replacing Pakistani people with Chinese people? Do you think the Pakistani people would like that? If cities in Pakistan were predominantly Chinese, would that be celebrated?
No, I don't think so. But which Muslim has said we want to replace Christianity? I just said to you, we are happy for Christianity to be the established religion of our country. Christians believe in loving your neighbor, in doing to others what you do unto yourself. What more could we ask for? These are wonderful people who have hosted us, who have welcomed us.
Why should we celebrate having our culture and our people replaced and disenfranchised? What's in it for me, Ibrahim? What do I get out of it?
Nobody is asking people to give up their cultures. I, as a non-white English British person, I have given up some of my parents' culture because I have found something in the dominant culture of this country that helps me to live my life in a better way than my parents' culture would have. So I am absorbing the culture of the dominant society within my country and enriching my life with it.
Well, what about me? What about many millions of people like me who don't want, for instance, all of our major cities turned into something like Bradford, the Islamic enclave of Bradford?
That is different
what do I do? What am I supposed to do?
That is different from having to adopt a culture. If you like a certain aspect of the other cultures that are present in our country, you take from that. If you do not, then you don't. You don't need to. We are not imposing. We are not going to put everyone in a straitjacket.
Simon, Ibrahim is obviously very proud of living in Britain and being British. Does that not make him British in your view?
Well, no, unfortunately, there's a concept within the Muslim doctrine. It's called al-Taqiyya, which means that basically infidels and kafirs like yourself and myself don't really matter that much. We're not important. He won't tell you that, of course. But it also...
So why are we...
Within that doctrine, there's a level where Muslims can deceive infidels and actually tell them what they want to hear, disguising their real aims. And I would put it to you that as reasonable as he does sound, and he does sound reasonable, he's quite good at his job, at the heart of it, he has a caliphate of Europe as his goal. He wants to see this country become an Islamic republic.
Is that so, Ibrahim?
That is absolutely not true. That is not true.
Karen has sent a text message through, and this is to you, Ibrahim. Karen says on the text, the diverse communities in Leicester remain just that. There's no integration in the main, just toleration. And she says that surely has to be a valid observation.
Yes, we must work towards making those relationships more interactive and better. We cannot afford to be complacent. There are pockets of our Leicester communities that don't get the opportunity to come across each other. But let us be innovative about this and create opportunities where people can come together. Let me give you one example of what we've done here in Leicester with our Christian neighbours and Christian friends. We have a dialogue group of Muslims and Christians that meet regularly. We have organised fundraising dinners where the two communities come together. We've organised football matches and cricket matches where the imams and the clergy have played one another. Our children have played with each other. We are creating opportunities for the two diverse groups to meet with one another, to get to know each other.
But it's not working, is it, Ibrahim? It's clearly not working because there isn't general integration.
No, it will not happen overnight. We have to put an effort in this and continue to work because for some, these opportunities never arise. So we have to create those opportunities where there might be a misconceived aspect of fear, or there might be uncertainty about how the other side might respond. And we've had tremendous fun and a lot of enjoyment sharing each other's company. In fact, people from outside of the UK are now looking to Leicester, and they're coming from Scandinavian countries and other countries to see how we in Leicester enjoy each other's company and learn from our
there's a call come through from Ben. Ben is a listener, and he says his parents and grandparents were born in either England, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales, but he was born in Pakistan. He's white. What would the BNP class him as? Simon?
Well, obviously he sounds like an indigenous European. It's the same with Cliff Richard. Cliff Richard was born in India. No one would say Cliff Richard. Or Joanna Lumley, who was born in India. No one would say that she was an Indian. It's obvious, isn't it? I think the embarrassment here is that people don't really like, in a politically correct society that we live in, they don't like to talk about identity and race. And these things are awkward to talk about, let's be honest. But I don't mind talking about them.
It's good that we're talking about it in a public manner, though, isn't it?
It is good. And I didn't expect this conversation to go on this long, actually. I thought that...
well, it's interesting, isn't it?
10-minute job. It is interesting, and I think it's a good thing. We've got Nick Griffin going on Question Time on the 22nd, and these thoughts are coming out because a lot of people, as much as people like to brand me a heretic and a non-believer in multiculturalism, there are an awful lot of people who, whilst they don't agree with me 100%, certainly go along with what I'm saying. And it is a very big problem we have in this country, especially with Islam, where this dominant religion, hugely funded by Middle Eastern oil money, is colonising Europe. And everything that we hold dear, women's rights, art, wildlife, all of these things are under threat. And it's no good talking about it, how we're celebrating people's company and how we've organised football matches and whatever. That's a very superfluous, very condescending way of what is tantamount to the destruction of the identity of my country and the replacement of my people.
Ibrahim.
Simon, it is a start. At least there are people who are making an effort to integrate our communities so that we can live together peacefully and make this the Britain that it deserves to be, the Great Britain. And all this idea about petrodollars propping up Islam in this country, it is not true at all. In fact, we have the Church of England, which has a fantastic support financially from within its organization. We have never complained about that. We don't have an issue with people who practice their religion and promote their religion. Everybody in a free democracy, in a secular democracy, has a right to do that. This idea about Islam being a threat to wildlife in our country, for goodness sake, where is that coming from? Now, Islam is a threat not just to British people, but to wildlife as well. Islam teaches care for animals, and you will not believe if I tell you.
Halal slaughter, does it? Where animals have their throats cut while they're still alive.
Well, look, that's another conversation for another day, gentlemen. Simon, just to conclude, because we have gone on for rather a lot longer than I thought we might on this one, but nevertheless, surely at the end of the day, you have to concede, if not as a party, then surely as an individual, that ultimately speaking, integration between all races, all societies, all cultures, surely has to be the only sensible and intelligent way forward to ensure harmony and peace for all.
Well, what are you actually saying? The creation of a coffee-coloured, monocultural Coca-Cola world? Is that what you're advocating?
I'm not necessarily advocating it. I'm saying surely that is the sensible way forward.
Well, you're advocating it, basically, aren't you?
Oh, right, okay.
Well, I would say that highlights the destruction of all cultures, doesn't it? I value all cultures, even some remote Stone Age tribe in Papua New Guinea. They've got something to offer as well.
But it's not a black and white world anymore, is it? You're trying to say blacks here and whites there. In reality, there's a yawning great chasm of grey, and that is the chasm of reason.
Well, it's not reasonable to advocate the destruction of people's cultures, people's identities. I think there's nothing wrong with the concept of the nation-state. People know that. You can go into the way that we're being submerged into a Euro-federalist one-world government, and we're just treated merely as cattle. We don't have any say in things anymore. But
it's not a destruction, Simon. It's a blending of cultures and colour, isn't it?
Well, would you advocate the same with the bird world, for instance? Would you just want one species of crow, for instance. Would that be good?
But if that's how it is, if that's what nature wants, that's what happens.
That's where me and you are different. Right. I can grasp the politically correct nettle and actually say that I'm proud to be what I am. Thank you very much. And I want to be around. I want our people to be around in the future, and I don't see why I should be forced to vilify and spit upon everything that our people have achieved over the centuries.
Simon Darby, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you very much.
Very much appreciated. That's Simon. He's Deputy Leader of the BNP. And Ibrahim Mogra, thank you very much indeed to you too. I would like to hear from anyone else that has been listening to that conversation or maybe has just tuned in towards the end of it. I was talking there to the Imam from Leicester, and that's Sheikh Ibrahim Mogra. He's also Assistant Secretary General, that is, Secretary General of the Muslim Council of Britain, and before that, Deputy Leader of the BNP, Simon Darby. Has it clarified things for you? Has it muddied the waters further? Love to hear from you, please. 07786 20 50 80. We've got loads of messages coming through, but there's still room for one from you. You can also phone me if you wish. It's Leicester 251 1049. And on the line is Phil Edwards. Good morning to you. I understand you're a doctor, Phil.
Correct.
Academic or medical?
Academic.
OK, all right. What do you got to say?
Well, indigenous peoples must have a right to preeminence in their own land. So the UK should remain a home for the native British people. Now, that doesn't mean excluding others, but you see, the Marxists, the politically correct people, the race relations industry, the left, they appear to want to destroy our birthright, and it's a form of disrespect. In other words, peoples of Britain are now the victim. Now, the BNP has no animosity or antipathy towards people of other races.
Do you support the BNP?
Oh, yes, I've been a member for many years.
Okay.
The fact of the matter is that, now, you're saying, what are the British? Now, to call us mongrels, which a mongrel race, I mean, would you describe a West Indian as a mongrel? I don't think you'd dare do that.
What if it was a fact? I mean, it is a fact that most of us, if not all of us in this country, I would say all of us, I go so far as that, as to say that every single one of us is made up of someone else.
No. The fact of the matter is this. The indigenous British people and the European people, white European people, we're all the females are all descended from 7 women. If you go back to the last ice age, about 20,000 years
These
ago.
are the 7 Eve, 7 women of Eve.
That's right.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I've done my DNA stuff.
Yeah. Now the point is this, that we British, we white indigenous people of Europe, we've evolved in isolation from other parts of the world. So we're different to the Chinese, different to the black people of Africa. We are unique, and they're unique, and the people, the Aborigine of Australia, are unique. Now, the BNP wishes this diversity to remain. And what it's given us as the indigenous European people is a certain sense of democracy, a certain sense of fair play. And let's face it, there's no democracies ever spontaneously evolved in any other part of the world. So we feel that we are the indigenous peoples. We're British, we're not mongrels. We have a kinship amongst our own people.
Well, I'm a mongrel. I'm a mongrel, Phil.
Why are you a mongrel?
Well, I am, because I'm made up of all sorts of DNA from all sorts of people, across the world.
What, from you're part African, you're part Chinese, are you?
Yeah, bound to be.
Really?
Bound to be.
No, you're not, because our ancestry goes back 200,000 years within Europe.
Yeah, Middle East, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, the Middle East, where one set of the daughters of Eve ended up down near Syria, I think her name was Jasmine, Professor Sykes calls her Jasmine, they were essentially white people who were forced down from Britain and Europe by the ice sheets.
So it's colour of skin then we're talking about? Not geographical location, it's colour of skin.
No, we're talking about the genes which are passed on from person to person during the process of Darwinian evolution in our very harsh climatic conditions of Europe. And that's given us a certain psychology, it's given us a certain IQ, a certain physiology, which is different, not saying better, but different to the way people have evolved in other parts of the world. Now, I would say you could call a mongrel a person who's probably got a Chinese grandfather, a black African grandmother. That's what we normally see as a mongrel. But the British people, by and large, we know what we are. We can recognise each other across a room. We know essentially we're all related somewhere down in the dim and distant past. But we're not mongrels. We are a racially homogeneous group.
But you could have a black ancestor.
In what way?
Well, what do you mean in what way? You
Well,
could, in your dark and distant past, there could be a black African, for example, or an Asian, or a Chinese person, or whatever, in your family tree. That is a fact, Phil.
I would say that if that is the case...
There are black people with white ancestors in their family tree.
I'm talking now sensibly about the British population. If there are any distant ancestors who were African or Chinese, I would say that it's a very tiny part of the DNA of that particular individual. And if you look at the way in which the DNA interacts with the environment and produces what we are, then it would be negligible. It would not alter the overall complexion of the British.
But you do concede that you could have a black ancestor?
Well, if there was a black ancestor, I don't think it would make any difference.
Well, exactly. That's the whole point.
But it would. The only reason it would make no difference is because it would be so tiny as to make no difference. Now, you know. Well, of course it is. I mean, look, why don't you look at the way dogs are bred, for instance? Now, dogs are essentially all genetically the same. There is a tiny, tiny genetic difference between the biggest dog and the smallest dog, and that is a gene which switches on growth in, say, a large dog like a Great Dane. It's inactive in a Chihuahua. Now, the fact is that genetically they're almost identical. Now, we know what a mongrel is amongst dogs. We can spot one, straight away.
Well, I'm a mongrel, and I have no problem in admitting it. But you apparently have, Phil.
Well,
Do you concede that some of your remarks could be construed as racist?
How do you define racist?
Well,
please?
How do you define it?
Well,
you rang up to talk about race.
I don't think there is. I think the word racist is a kind of an insulting word which has been manufactured by the Marxists, by the media, in order to shoot down people with views like mine.
I'm just asking what your view is about that.
Well, I would say that I do not use the word racist. It is an insulting term. It's a swear word. I would.
What, to those making it or those on the receiving end?
No, it's the people who use the word are using it because they've run out of argument. It's a way. It's like calling somebody a fascist. If you look at the unwashed who go around protesting against the BNP, they use words like fascist. Now let me tell you what the real word is. The real word is race realist.
Okay.
The old word was racialist.
Race realist.
And race realist. Listen,
I'm a race realist, and I say we're all mongrels.
Race realist because you're ignorant and you don't know anything about it.
Well, I think if you're going to start insulting me like that, then there's no point in trying to argue with a closed mind. Goodbye, Mr. Phil Edwards. Oh, sorry, Doctor. Lots of your messages coming through on the text 07786 20 50 80, as you might imagine, on the issue of racism, on the issue of Inside Out last night, and on the issue of the British National Party. I was talking to the deputy leader a little earlier on this morning, in case you missed that. You can always hear it again by going to our website, bbc.co.uk/Leicester. But it has solicited quite a bit of response. It was quite a heated debate at times, as you can well imagine. What have we got here? This is from V in Leicester, talking about the remote tribes, as one of my contributors was. They will remain so. These are the remote tribes they're referring to. They will remain so due to their remoteness. Culture is not definitive. It evolves along with society and time. Cultures, as they are, would not have been allowed to develop as they are if we went into the BNP's theory. What about the Vikings, the Romans, African slavery in the USA? Recent examples. A whole new culture, although not developed in a desirable, yea, nevertheless, new culture born from nowhere. Thank you for that. How refreshing to hear someone with the guts to say what I consider most people are thinking. Dave in Fleckney says, I'm not entirely sure to whom you're referring there, whether it's me or one of my contributors. I had text messages as well about the issue in Colville. BNP there in the past 5 years has become a black suburb of Leicester. Not for the good. The ethnics do not integrate at all, says Dave, texting me from Colville. Thank you very much indeed for that. Rita in Weston Park says, why can't I say I'm English on the electoral roll? I have to say I'm British Commonwealth. But I am English, she says. Am I ashamed to be so? Or where those came from as well. 07786 20 50 80 if you want to get it off your chest. Right, back to the debate that we were having about the BNP and their policy regarding membership. They're due to be taken to court in a couple of days' time by the Equalities Watchdog. It claims that the BNP breaches the Race Relations Act because it only allows white Britons to be members. And I was talking to the deputy leader of the BNP, Simon Darby. He was chatting to me for quite a long time, along with my other guest. And that was Assistant Secretary General of the Muslim Council of Britain and Imam from Leicester, Sheikh Ibrahim Mogra. And quite a lot of response to that, as you can well imagine. Dave Bowman Lees on the text says, Ibrahim said he's proud to be British, yet he referred to his country of origin as my country, quote unquote. He needs to make up his mind, he says. Pete in Wixton says, if Ibrahim Mogra is so proud of Leicester, why have the Islamic community turned Spinney Hills, the area there, into a filthy, litter-strewn ghetto, quote unquote. Karen says, my vet, talking about, because I said that we're all mongrels, you see, but at least a couple of my guests took exception to that. My vet, says Karen, always tells me that if you want a healthy, well-balanced dog, get a mongrel. Hybrid vigour. She says, seriously, it's a compliment. Thank you for that. What else we got here? From Dave, who describes himself as English and proud. Tony, it's not true that the white birth rate is falling due to the main responsible breeding the ethnic birth rate. It far outstrips the white. This is quite a worry. Okay, thank you for that. Dave in Fleckney, I've already referred to his. He was saying that Simon Darby was refreshing to hear, with the guts to say what I consider, he says, most people to be thinking. Most people. I don't know about that, Dave. Bit of a sweeping generalisation, I would have thought myself. Nevertheless, let's move on, shall we? What do we got here? This one is from someone calling himself City Boy. Hi, Tone. Always thought that patriotism was the last refuge of a scoundrel. They're just some of the responses we've had to that debate. If you want to join in, then it's 07786 20 50 80, 07786 20 50 80. There's one or two emails as well to get through, and we'll get through those before too long. It's been quite a lively one this morning with you and I and my guests and subjects under discussion. Trust you found something along the way to stimulate the old cerebral cortex. If you were watching BBC One's Inside Out programme last night, you'd have seen and heard our BBC East Midlands Today weatherman and BBC Radio Leicester's weatherman, of course, Des Coleman. He found out for himself what it was like to confront the British National Party. The programme was aired last night and left questions raised regarding what Britishness really is. How far back in your ancestry do you have to go to be considered British? That was the question I was attempting to put to the deputy leader of the BNP, Simon Darby. And I've got all sorts of responses to that on the text, as you can imagine. Roger from Melton says, surely the party in question should be renamed the ENP. Having basic English roots as it claims, and on religion, then churches together is the only way forward. Roger, thank you very much indeed for your observation and comments there. Lolling Polesworth. Just over the border a bit, but all are welcome. Tony says, why can't we build a Church of England church in Muslim countries when they can build mosques here? They bring their cultures here, even changing the name of Christmas. I think that's a bit of a fallacy, if you'll pardon me for saying so, Lol. That's an urban myth, mate. We offend them all with our cultures, says Lol. Thank you very much indeed for your interest. 07786 20 50 80. Anything else you got to say? Let's hear from you, please. 07786 20 50 80. Just one more before we move on. Morning Tone. I agree with one of your other callers. Generally, the different ethnic races do not mix. The word diverse is always being used, suggesting we all mix. Other cultures in other countries seem to be similar, with the exception of the USA, maybe. Maybe, says Helen in Birstall, it's just human nature. 8 minutes past 11. I got Vivian on from Wixon Magna. Hello.
Hello, Tony.
Good morning. You were a party to my conversation, my debate earlier on.
Yes.
Did you see the programme last night?
Unfortunately, we were out. My husband set it up to record, and we only got the very end bit of Des's bit, and we got all the other bits that we weren't really interested in about football, and only saw the end of Des's. So we're going to have to pick it up on the computer. Okay,
but you got a gist of what was going on last night from my conversation with Simon Darby from the BNP. What are your thoughts?
Yes. He was very cagey about his ancestry, wasn't he?
Well, I was trying to push him on that a bit.
Yes, and he didn't want to, did he? No, he's British, going back 10,000 years or whatever.
Yeah.
I've only heard a little bit about this, the seven Eves who we're all descended from.
That's research undertaken by the University of Oxford. I've had both my DNA analysed on both my paternal and maternal sides.
Really?
And I'm mongrel, and it's ever so interesting. Yes. I don't care. What's wrong with the word mongrel, for God's sake?
Nothing. I mean, when you consider, we're a little island, and we've had Danes, Saxons, Franks, the Normans. Loads of people came in and sort of mixed with the so-called indigenous population. I mean, if you want to go to pure British, I suppose you've got to go into places like Wales and Cornwall, where they do still believe that they are, the originals.
The Celts.
The Celts, yes, the Celts. And up in Scotland, the Picts, but even they have intermarried. So we are mongrels, and I don't see anything wrong with it. One of your other listeners, said that, her vet said that if you want a strong, feisty dog, go for a mongrel.
That's right.
The mixture is better than a purebred, and it's very true.
Yeah, you're quoting Carol on the text. My vet, she says, is always telling me that if you want a healthy, well-balanced dog, get a mongrel.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And I just feel that people like Ibrahim Mogra, who have, come here, 25 years ago, and he has settled here with his family. He upholds obviously British law and so on. And then this man from the BNP is saying, if we're not careful, we'll all be under Sharia law and I just.
Well, but that's just plain nonsense, I think.
Yes, I think so. I don't think that would happen in 1,000 years, million years, I hope.
I mean, as I understand it, the Lord Chief Justice, I think it was last year, if I remember correctly, he came out quite publicly in support of the Archbishop of Canterbury, if I've got my facts correct. And he was basically saying, as far as Sharia law is concerned, there's nothing wrong with Muslims sorting out, the sort of relationship issues among themselves. But when it comes to the law of the land, then that most definitely is very different, and all should obey that.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I'm fully in
so that ain't likely to change in the immediate future?
I don't think so, no. And I'm interested to know that this guy can trace his ancestry back 10,000 years. I wasn't aware there was much sort of written knowledge, written history around then,
Are you British?
I'm a mixture, really. My paternal grandmother was from County Kildare in Ireland. I think somewhere on my mother's side there is some French, but we're not quite sure. There may even be French Jewish. We're a complete mixture. I'm a mongrel.
I'm proud of it. Yes. Okay, good to